We deal in paint, pigment, light and shadow, realism, surrealism, impressionism, and ghost stories.
An interest in the oddball, a predilection toward the bizarre. And this place is nothing if it isn't bizarre.
There's no admission, no requirement of membership, only a strong and abiding belief in the dark at the top of the stairs, or things that go bump in the night. The name of this place, should you have come in here accidentally out of the rain, is the Night Gallery.
Welcome back, art lovers, to Midnight Viewing, the Night Gallery podcast, where we discuss Night Gallery, Rod Serling's follow-up to The Twilight Zone. I'm Father Malone, and with me here in the gallery are the podcast of powers, Mike White.
Hello!
Also joining us is Bollywood Cinema Club's Chris Stashew.
Did you feel that rush of cool air past you?
This is Season 2, Episode 12, which aired on December the 8th, 1971. The episode is split into 3 segments. Those are Cool Air, Camera Obscura, and Quoth the Raven.
Painting number 1. It has to do with death. Usually the last chapter in every man's book of life. The ashes and the dust, the tomb, and the engraving on the stone. Death, the finale. But our first painting offers up a tale with the final curtain not quite the final curtain. There's an epilogue. We offer you now a little item called Cool Air. Tonight's first painting in the Night Gallery.
Cool Air was written by Rod Serling from a short story by HP Lovecraft and directed by Jeannot Swark. 22 segments, gentlemen. Jeannot Swark, 22 segments.
At least it's not Gene Kearney.
Wow.
Thank God it's not Gene Kearney doing 22 segments. I think I would lose my mind. This one stars Henry Darrow, Barbara Rush, who, by the way, appeared in a TV movie called The Man, which was about the first black president, starring James Earl Jones, written by Rod Serling.
Oh, yes.
Written by Rod Serling.
Such a great movie.
This is the tale of a May-December romance. What'd you think of this one, Mike?
It left me cold.
Oh, bing, bang. I'll set him up. You're not gonna...
Yes. I was waiting for that rim shot there, Chris.
Soundboard. Yeah.
There we go.
A little late on the uptake around here. We just got the soundboard.
Yeah, we're back in HP Lovecraft territory, though. Again, I can tell what's going on. Why are we supposed to not figure this stuff out? Yeah, the guy's dead. Like, I could tell you that right from the get-go. I don't know. I really wanted to like this one. Maybe if it was like half the length, I would have liked it a little bit more, but at the length that it was, and just that I could see the twist coming, yeah, no joke, it did leave me cold.
Boy, they love HP Lovecraft, don't they? They really, really do. I mean, look, I'm not going to say, oh, what a weird HP Lovecraft story to adapt. Because, look, HP Lovecraft in a lot of ways is like Stephen King. Like, he's got plenty of things to adapt, folks, and they're not all winners for a reason. Whatever the fuck the conceit of this episode is, that there is a man who is a living corpse because he lives in an icebox. You know what? Sure, fine, whatever. But that's like a 10-minute episode segment, not a 20-minute segment. Like, good Lord. And I'm, not to jump ahead, but I'm not sure that criticism is not going to be leveled against both of these segments. I think they're both too long for what they're trying to do. I think this one is way too long for what the punchline is. And look, I'm not saying the punchline doesn't work. It's sufficiently campy and kind of goofy, but way too long. Just way too.
Well, it also doesn't help that it feels so similar to the one we just talked about on our last episode with the woman that was... Oh, wait. Was that the one? Was it a woman that was being menaced by that thing, or am I completely mixing these up?
In Pickman's
right?
Yeah,
it's
also HP Lovecraft,
right? And it's like basically a woman comes in and is just, oh, what is this stuff? And then, oh, there's a big monster or a big twist, quote unquote, at the end.
Yeah, it's a shame that they're on the heels of one another because The romance aspect is not present in the original H.P. Lovecraft story. And I actually think it's an improvement by Rod Serling in that regard. And if you read the original story, there's a lot of, he's supposed to be from Spain, so it's all phonetically written. Oh, a little Leetle. It's very embarrassing. Henry Darrow here, he's 5 years younger than Barbara Rush, playing a dashing older man. I liked him. I liked his performance a lot. I thought Barbara Rush was really good. There's another unnecessary wraparound, just like the Pickman's model in the last one, which starts in the present for no reason and then takes us back. Like that to me is the lamest part of it, is the Serling concoction that we're going to see the leaves blow off the top of the gravestone at the end and realize he's been dead twice. By the way, who put that there? She put that there? Why would that be on there? Weirdest thing ever. By the way, his name is misspelled on the grave.
High production values abound at midnight at the Night Gallery podcast. I guess this isn't the podcast has high production values. This show doesn't. Is this the backlot again, you think?
Oh, speaking of the backlot and high production value, at one point, like, this starts, it's a period piece. It's set in the 1920s, and she's in the back of what is basically a horseless carriage as driving down the street. And in the background, the street is blocked off by a Universal Studios van. Oops.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, what are you implying, Father Malone?
Maybe shoot the scene at night?
I thought you were. What are you implying that this
maybe
is?
Put a fruit stand back there, or like two guys carrying a pane of glass. Anything other than a vehicle from 1971 just sitting there, going like, "Hey, folks, the tour is right this way."
Hey, who was asleep at the wheel at this point? Huh? That's the question.
I blame Jeannot. But Jeannot did do something really cool here. There's a conversation scene when they're falling in love. It's a 1.5-minute pan around the dinner table. There's a join in it, but it's really masterful considering all the other limitations that they're sort of saddled with. Also, the music in this episode, this was a guest composer, a guy named Robert Bain. He was an LA session musician. It was actually Henry Mancini's guitarist. And he was specifically chosen by Laird to do a Spanish flavored theme for this episode, and actually works really well as far as I'm concerned. Is this episode about, because Serling made it a romance, is this now a tale of necrophilia?
Jesus! Necromantic, written by Rod Serling.
I'm just saying.
I mean, if we're talking literally, then yes.
Well, all right. Good for you, Rod.
HP Lovecraft was into some freaky shit.
Lovecraft didn't have anything to do with that part of it. That's all Serling.
Yeah, but I mean, the concept, though, it still lends itself in that direction.
The concept of necrophilia just goes way back to the beginning of civilization. We always had it with us. It just took Rod Serling to really popularize it. Use it in between commercials for soap.
Exactly.
I only use Ajax when I clean my bathroom. Now back to necrophilia.
It's the most romantic presentation of necrophilia I've ever seen. I was moved.
Yeah, when you think about it that way, boy, it really puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? You know what? Hey, I wish the payoff was in an episode segment half the length. That's really it. Like, it's not a bad segment. I just don't think it gets to the point fast enough. And also, like, you're stalling as if we can't kind of figure out what's going on. Like, was anyone surprised at the end that he was a corpse? Like, they kind of hint at it a lot. Like, a lot.
A lot.
A lot, yeah.
Also, this episode does contain, I think, the single worst performance in any segment we've seen thus far, which is that handyman, ice-carrying guy, whoever he is. What's with the guy in there with he's got ice in the bathroom, just pulling all these faces like he's, I don't know, like he's auditioning for a Marx Brothers.
He's late-stage Leslie Nielsen.
Boy, he was bad.
We branch out a bit this evening and move a few feet away from the usual and get into the area of photography. Now, this painting here had best be viewed in a dark room because it conjures up the ghostly, the ghastly, and the ghoulish. It tells the story about a very remarkable device that offers up a vision as things are and a hellish vision of what they were and shall be. Our painting is called Camera Obscura.
All right, our next segment is called Camera Obscura. This one was written by Rod Serling. based on a short story by Basil Copper, and this one was directed by John M. Badham. This one stars Rene Auberjonois. I just love saying his name. And the always incredible, never heralded enough Mr. Ross Martin. This one is about a greedy financier who is introduced to a client's hobby, an optical illusion that's hard to shake. What'd you think of this one, Chris?
I love Rene Auberjonois as well. What a name. What a name, huh? What a recent loss, too. Passed away like 2 years ago, a year ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
never had the chance to interview him. Tried, but never got him.
He was the narrator for my two favorite authors who write books together. He has been doing the voices for the narration for like 10, 15 books. So that's what I know, and I know he's from Deep Space Nine, obviously. But playing against the type of things that I've seen him in, and the roles that he's playing an asshole. And it's weird, because normally he's not... I mean, in Boston Legal, he wasn't that character either. He was kind of the voice of reason in Boston Legal. So I liked this segment. It's fun. It's fine. It's very similar to another segment coming up in a lot of ways. It has a certain kind of feel to it, and it's a very similar setup to things that you could see as recently as, like, I'm sure they're still making things where the conceit is you're stuck now, goodbye. Like, I'm sending you into the past. That's a pretty... stock and trade conceit sometimes with these like Twilight Zone and anthology shows. So for what it was, I think it was fine. That fake mustache that Ross Martin is wearing is pretty bad. The like giant, I don't know. The facial hair that they gave him is pretty funny to look at.
You mentioned some of Rene Auberjonois' credits. Are you not familiar with his television sitcom Benson that he was on?
Nope.
Okay, that predates you, obviously. It was late 70s, early 80s, and he was pure asshole in that. I know him from that show. And so, to me, Rene Auberjonois always has a level of asshole because of that.
Yeah, he really helped save this segment. I didn't get necessarily why Ross Martin was in that really, really bad old man makeup, because I kept thinking like he would show up, because he basically sends Rene Auberjonois to the past. And I was just like, oh, so young Ross Martin is going to show up here and be like, hey, and like have a conversation with him and be like, see the errors of your ways. Because it's very Christmas Carol, the way that you're seeing the errors. It's very Ghosts of Christmas Yet to Come type of thing, with the people with the horror makeup on and, oh, you remember me. And he was actually doing that to them. He'd be like, oh, you're dead and you did this and you did this. And so I was just like, oh, great. Ross Martin's going to show up. He's going to show him the error of his ways, and then maybe he'll let him live and say, forget about the bill or whatever, I'll help you out or something. But didn't get any of that stuff. I mean, I like Ross Martin as well, one of my favorite Columbo villains from the Suitable for Framing. But yeah, I don't think he had enough to do in this one. And
no,
yeah,
no,
Columbo there with those gloves on.
Yeah, that stands out still.
You touch those paintings.
We do like when you were gone, I did mention Ross Martin's hilarious fake facial hair. That's just like, oh, fucking Yosemite Sam. Like, oh, just give him the fakest of fake mustaches that he could not twirl, but he could if he wanted to.
He looked like that skull that walked onto an elevator last episode.
I'm just so used to Ross Martin as Artemis Gordon being a master of disguise that I figured it was just in that vein, so I didn't question it that much. But I'm glad I didn't, because had I gone down the path that you did, Mike, I would have been very upset at the end of this episode when he didn't reappear somehow in this nightmare realm that he's cast Rene Auberjonois into.
Right. He just pulls off the mustache. It was me all along.
This segment, there's a new cinematographer on Night Gallery. His name's Leonard J. South. And I think this episode actually looks really good considering it's on the back lot. Leonard South was the DP on Family Plot, Hitchcock's last film. He also did Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. I don't know how that keeps coming up on this goddamn podcast. And he did North Avenue Irregulars.
One of my favorites.
This was shot on the back lot?
Shut up.
Yeah.
Every time. At this point, it's got to be a running gag on this show because they're not even trying to cover it up anymore. Like, hey, what do we got on the back lot? What can we do around these, 4 fucking locations that we've got? And if it's not New York, how can we make it look like New York?
In the last episode, we talked about Pinkman's Model, which takes place in Boston during the 1920s. And it looks a lot like Victoria Green's London here, baby. Like, if they just went up those stairs, they'd run into Pinkman and that little gremlin running around with its stick legs.
Bradford Dillman, everybody. There it goes.
Mike, you mentioned Christmas Carol, and I thought this is the Christmas Carol for me, where Scrooge has to face all of his sins.
Yes.
Like, this one makes more sense to me, and therefore I liked it a lot more. I do think it's overlong by a lot, but the sequence where Rene Auberjonois, just like saying it, is running across the street and the horse and carriage is barreling down on him looks great. And I know it's just a quick little optical effect there, but it's a very tense sequence. For a moment or two, I was actually fearing for Rene Auberjonois' life. I
would need a counter at this point.
As it turns out, Jack Laird wouldn't give them the money to do that sequence. And John Badham tracked the producer down and said, how much would it be? And they told him it was $15.
What?
And he was like, oh, okay. Yeah, like, how can we not have $15?
Blackout sketches, baby. That's what we need that money for. That skeleton needs a good-looking wig and a hat.
That's what the $15 is for, that entire costume. I do like this one. I do think it's overlong. And then Serling can't help over-explaining the ending. It can't just cut to Ross Martin, like, gleeful that he's done this thing and going, no, he has to tell us what happened. There, you'll be trapped forever. I've trapped you in my camera obscura. Stop it.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Old man Ross Martin with a big mustache. There's a lot of really close-up shots of his face too. Like that's why the mustache.
Yeah.
That's why I mentioned the mustache so much because it's like all I can think of is like he is just this giant mustache and these 2 eyes. That's just Ross Martin in this episode.
Yeah, he looked like Maverick from the Warner Brothers cartoon, where it's like, Maverick, come here, help me out with this rabbit over here. Maverick just has that big mustache and the big hat and all that. Can barely see it. I don't even think you see his eyes.
There's a moment where there's a shop window gets broken and they cut to a gas lamp exploding. It was great.
I like when Rene Auberjonois gets thrown back into the past and he sees the guy up on the lamp and he's like, is that gas? is that gas? Why, yes, my good man, it is gas. Oh, Lord, I know what year I've been. Like, what year is this set in to begin with? I was so confused. Like, he went back in time, 30 years?
At least, did he go back in time at all? Really?
That's what I'm asking. Wouldn't he have been wouldn't he have been like, this is gas? Yeah.
Right.
That's why I don't understand. They didn't. I don't understand what the gimmick was when it, like you said, it didn't seem like he really went back in time that far, if at all.
Said, is that gas? And the guy could have said, no, it runs on blood. Because...
Oh my God.
You're not wrong.
He keeps clogging up the heads, too.
Yeah. I mean, because, when he goes... I considered it going back in time. Because he kept saying, this building isn't here anymore, and this building isn't here, and da-da-da. And then, but he runs across people where he's just, oh, yeah, well, basically, this is going to this is what is going to happen to you. But then he also runs into people where they're dead, so they've lived their lives, and now they're dead, and they might have died during his lifetime, but they weren't dead when he was a kid, you know what I mean? So...
That's one of those hazards of time travel they never talk about. If you go into the past, there will be ghostly zombies of the dead.
Oh, it's just like if you go into the future, Morlocks.
Right.
Give it to Rod Serling to over-explain the most obvious of episode segments. Ultimately, if he's not telling me what happened, I just don't understand the twist.
No, but Badham does a good job here.
I would agree.
Badham's always been a solid director.
From the pen of Edgar Allan Poe, of more or less, Quoth the Raven.
Our final segment is called Quoth the Raven, written by Jack Laird, directed by Jeff Corey. This one stars Marty Allen and a matte painting from Roger Corman's Pit and the Pendulum. It also stars Mel Blanc in an uncredited role. And also, this is a blackout that comes with a Serling introduction, which makes me...
I noticed that.
I thought, is this from the syndicated package and it's now found its way to the regular episodes? Because more of that, please. This is a Playboy cocktail party joke with Marty Allen.
Marty Allen, man, oh man, I missed the Marty Allen train. I mean, I don't know the origins of Hello Dare. I kind of don't want to. I mean, maybe I should go back and buy some comedy albums from Martin and Rossi, or Allen and Rossi, I should say. But yeah, man, oh man, that you see that fucking joke coming from a mile away, and him with that crazy hair just doesn't. They're not going for verisimilitude with how Poe looked.
Ladies and gentlemen, imagine, if you will, I have to have my time wasted to introduce a blackout segment. That's all I'll say. Rod Serling looked like he was being held at gunpoint to have to do the intro for this segment. I mean, that was my takeaway. That was the strangest thing about this, was that he was doing an intro for this is the only time he's done an intro for a blackout segment, I believe, right? I assume it's because it's Edgar Allan Poe.
Maybe. He tends to gravitate towards the classier ones. Like this, in Rod Serling's estimation, is a fine horror joke to make, not pulling your head off to be chivalrous. Here's what I have to say about this segment. I saw this young enough that and knew The Raven as a poem, but didn't quite work out some of the imagery in my mind. So this was the first time I realized what a pallid bust of Pallas above the chamber door actually was. It's a statue of Athena. I gotcha. So thank you, Jack Laird, for that. He signs his name Edgar Allan Poe. He spells it Allen, which always gets my goat. It's a real pet peeve of mine, but this is Marty Allen doing it, so I'm gonna give it a pass.
Well, it only works. I mean, it works if it's him.
Only him, yes. Because
not even Woody Allen could pull that off.
Edgar Allan Poe, his name is Edgar Allen. He was adopted by the Poe family. His name is actually Allan, so it just makes me nuts when people think it's his middle name, like Allen Quartermain or something. Anyway,
you an Edgar Allan Poe fan, Father Malone? You strike me as what? Just a skosh.
A little bit.
Have we gotten an actual Poe story in Night Gallery? Is that a thing that happens at any point, or is this the closest we get to touching that level of gothic?
Well, I think this is as close as I don't think they adapt anything of his directly. We've gotten some hints of his work prior, but it's good to know that Edgar Allan Poe has now entered the Universal Monsters lexicon as a touchstone of horror. He's sitting right next to Dracula and Frankenstein and the Phantom of the Opera.
I mean, I guess they did the Cask of Amontillado thing.
Right.
Oh, that is true.
Which they claim.
And in that one with the guy who bought the ghost house, it was kind of the Pit and the Pendulum type of thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And the case can be made that HP Lovecraft's Cool Air is a take on Poe's Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar. It's very similar. So he's all over the series. It's just not in any direct way other than troll like Marty Allen playing with the only redeeming thing for me here was hearing Mel Blanc's voice at the end. Those are some dulcet tones.
That was nice. And I'm glad you pointed that out because I was like, I think that was him.
I love a good blackout sketch, don't you?
Uncredited.
If it had been 10 years later, it would have been Frank Welker.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. All animal noises in this film were made by Frank Welker and nobody else. Again, I find it interesting. This is now the second episode in a row that we've had the blackout sketch end the episode.
They've done that a few times now and again, but is it a trend? No.
I don't mind it. I don't know if there's better suited in between or at the end. I view it as kind of like an after dinner mint that you go out the door with. It's the little spice mix at the end of the meal at the Indian restaurant as you walk out the door. It's just, it doesn't need to be substantial. That's the point. Like I guess you could also see it as similarly a palate cleanser in between the two segments. But I mean, I think it honestly works best to just lead you out the door, give you a little chuckle on the way out.
Well, I think it needs to go where it needs to go, because if you're going to begin the episode with the boy who predicted earthquakes, then you need a blackout sketch immediately following. Don't put it at the end. You need to recover a little bit. And when the episodes are just mediocre as they've been, putting them at the end is a nice little pat on the back. We're just kidding here. Come back next time.
Right.
Sorry for wasting your time. It's the treat that they send you out of the dentist's office with after they drill your mouth for an hour. Enjoy. When you're a kid, it's something fun. When you're an adult, it's a fucking toothbrush. It's the same thing.
All right, we're going to play a preview of the next episode, and we'll be right back to wrap things up.
Of course, you're all here by invitation, but don't let it disturb you if these paintings per se don't happen to be your thing. These are rather special paintings, the kind of hanging generally put up with a noose. This painting, for example, is of a rather special world. What has become perpetuated in the language as the ghetto, that dismal realm of pushcarts and poverty, where hopes are stamped down like dirty shoes on snow. Death is a commonplace visitor to these somber alleys, but occasionally someone else visits. Our painting is called The Messiah on Mott Street, and this place, should you not already know it, is the Night Gallery. We, all of us, have a kind of fascination for mirrors. There's a most appealing mystery to what is on the other side of the looking glass. And occasionally we turn into Alice. Our last selection in tonight's gallery, a very special looking glass, and it's called The Painted Mirror.
That's right. On the next Midnight Viewing, we'll be taking a look at Season 2, Episode 13. That's broken into 2 segments, The Messiah on Mott Street and The Painted Mirror. Until next time, what are you working on and where can people find it, Mike White?
Oh, man. Everything that I'm working on, that can be found over at weirdingwaymedia.com. That's stuff like the projection booth. That's stuff like, well, ranking on Bass. You can find the old Kolchak tape series there. Just all kinds of good things. So new and old. Oh, gosh. 613 old episodes of the projection booth, something like that. Just go nuts. You get a few hours of entertainment out of that. Apparently, Father Malone listens to that while he's working.
I do. Yeah, and I encourage everyone to do so as well. Where can people find that? Oh, I'll just ask Chris, where can people find your stuff?
Same place, weirdingwaymedia.com, where Father Malone, you and I went into a vault of a different direction with some Chronicles from the Crypt, where we talked about Tales from the Crypt all the way through. And we also the three of us do Dreams for Sale, which was us talking about another anthology. We could do a anthology series podcast network at this point, for fuck's sake. Like, we're putting in the effort and the work so that the good episodes are highlighted and the bad episodes are skipped. Yeah, that's where you can find it, Weirding Way Media. There's a lot of other things there, not anthology stuff.
Well, you can hear my anthology radio drama, Dark Destinations, over there, which you can find at weirdingwaymedia.com. That's where all the stuff is, gang. Thank you all for joining us here at Midnight Viewing. The gallery is now closed.